We're not competitive before with the rest of Canada. For the first time, we are competitive. And when you are competitive, you get private sector investment. When you get private sector investment, you create jobs. When you create jobs, your children stay here in this city because there is a future for them, as opposed to going east and west and south. And that's where Winnipeg is at right now, and we have the opportunity to capture that, which is why I've been saying for over and over again, most regressive tax of all is property tax. Everybody knows that. Consumption tax is the way to go. And I've been yelling this from the top of the mountain, but I'll yell it again one more time. If you look at every dollar of tax, there's only one taxpayer. You guys are the one taxpayer. It goes to the federal, the provincial, and the civic government. Out of that $1 of tax, after transfers and after grants, the province of Manitoba gets 65 cents. Federal government, 28 cents. Okay? The city of Winnipeg, 7 cents.
Has there been
you tell me if that makes sense.
Has there been no cost to the city by refusing to raise taxes for the last 13 years? When we talk about decaying infrastructure and the needs across the community clubs, you name it.
I mean, I basically read the report on recreational facilities, and the report was hidden. I'm the one who took it out. You know what it said? It said it's a shame because after years of neglect, and what they do, they build these lovely facilities during a provincial election or a federal election. They build them on two opposite corners, but they never put away money for proper maintenance. It's all about proper maintenance, and that's what the city has to do. Whenever we build, we budget for proper maintenance. You don't do that, you'll be in the exact same position we are right now. Roads, bridges, buildings, it makes no difference, Terry.
We had a late question in which extended the answer, and I'm going to give Judy 30 seconds to respond.
Sam, for 6 years, you have not addressed the crumbling infrastructure facing Winnipeg. I put a proposal on the table that I think will make a difference in terms of rebuilding the city and getting strategic alliances with the other levels of government. Will you, in fact, today put your plan on the table so we can have an honest debate about how to rebuild this city? Or are you going to continue to talk about a sales tax without actually committing yourself and declaring your proposal?
Mr. Moderator, that's a question. I assume I should answer it because I want to be very polite today. So with you, only with your indulgence,
very briefly, please.
Number one, let's talk about a plan. Okay? This city invested $63 million in recreational infrastructure. This city, under my leadership, 450% increase in funding for roads and bridges, in addition to Chief Peguis and Disraeli Bridge through P3s. We're not talking, we're walking, we're doing exactly what has to be done. And your plan of $8 million a year, with all the announcements you've made, you're going to need $88 million a year. You're not going to do anything. So let's talk about relationships with the federal and provincial government. I challenge you. Federal government, let's talk about who has a better relationship. With the Liberals, I got the gas tax. With the Conservatives, we talk on a regular basis. And if you want to listen to the Premier, he says he has a great relationship with
when
me.
we go into extra time, there's the shootout. Both teams get to shoot. Right? It's not just one team shooting.
Just trying to answer a question.
No, I understand. You can blame me. It was my fault.
I'll take
you do have an opportunity to ask each other questions.
Okay.
And I also have an opportunity to ask another question, and I've got some material now to work with. We're going to move on to our next topic, which is government spending and efficiencies with Jeff.
I'm glad you two had that little tip because this kind of relates to this question. This is for both of you. Under the current administration, the city has used reserve funding and saved on costs through attrition to meet the annual budget while keeping property taxes frozen. Besides raising property taxes or going to the other levels of government for money, what other sources of revenue have you individually identified to help pay for more police, roads, bridges, and other pressing needs? And where do you and where would the money go other than what I just mentioned, I guess? So other than going to the other levels of government and raising property taxes, where else will you get revenue?
Judy, I think it's...
Judy, starts with you. User fees, anything? Be
Thanks.
specific. Be specific.
All right, I'll tell you, besides the property tax increase, which I believe is affordable and is a plan at least, and Sam still to this moment continues to refuse to put a plan on the table, which I would suggest is being disingenuous in terms of this election. I also believe that we have got great possibilities of working in strategic partnership with the provincial and federal governments, and we can only do that by in fact putting a proposal on the table and showing the will of this city to do its part. We cannot simply stand on street corners and whine about lack of support from the other levels of government. We've got to go back to the days when Winnipeg was leading the charge in terms of a new deal for cities. Remember Glenn Murray and how he put Winnipeg on the map, how we got big city mayors together, and there was a real move and a real impetus
So does that
to
mean
move in that
something like a
direction.
user fees? I'm not totally 100%
That means,
familiar with the new deal,
following the recommendations of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce to start advocating strongly for a new deal for cities, which means in fact addressing the fiscal imbalance and the fact that, as Sam always likes to say, for every dollar raised in tax revenue by this city, we only get 6 or 7 cents to manage on our own. Let's start going to the real nub of the issue here, which is the question of the city-state and the question of the role of the city in this global economy. We've got to, in fact, recognize we are the economic engines of the country, and we have to have the resources to do it.
To respond.
Thank you very much. There are several categories, Jeff. I'll start off one. We call it cost recovery. For many years, the city has been providing services and actually losing on that. So for example, now if you apply for a permit, it's cost recovery. We actually charge you what it cost us. So that's one way we're getting back to the balance sheet of basically recovering the expenses. Another situation would be, obviously, you may have heard of Sponsor Winnipeg. Okay, to date, we have had approximately $1.5 million, okay, in commitments, and it does help in the city as opposed to us having to provide monies for programmings. We now have the corporate community coming forward and giving us monies, and I believe that will continue to grow. And I think the greatest way for us to raise monies is basically through getting people to invest and develop in our city. As I said, that broadens the tax base. In addition to that, it creates jobs, which is what it's all about. So those are some specific areas how we would continue to do that.
Quick follow-up. What about selling more city-owned assets, whether it's golf courses or anything? Same question to both. What about selling more assets?
May I go first? Should I go first?
Yep, that would be fine.
First of all, the city owns land. That's number one. And when we declare land surplus, the idea is to sell it after making sure that no department wants to use it. And of course, the idea is to get that land developed. Commercial, industrial, residential. Not only do we get capital, one-time money coming in from the sale, but then hopefully we'll get long-term property taxes. There have been several conversations about, golf courses comes up. As you know, we have a special operating agency. They run our golf courses. Some of them we do okay, some of them we don't do as well as we should. Some of them we actually lease out to the private sector. These are all things that are being looked at right now, and the department's looking at that as well. Are those options? They're always options. Would they create the kind of money you're thinking of? Probably not, Jeff.
I think just to note something that